Hey everybody, welcome to Popcorn Planet. I'm Andy Signor, and Joe Rogan got in some hot water this weekend, making some statements on his latest JRE about gaming being a waste of time, prompting a lot of gamers in the industry to come forward and call him out, getting a lot of clicks across all ends, for Joe's show, for other bloggers, for other people, and everybody just trying to get themselves in the mix with Joe Rogan. Because let's be honest, the real story here is that Joe Rogan's a very, very popular personality online. Whenever any of us engage or respond or react, people click. It's just the reality. I've made a couple Joe Rogan videos, mostly about his Spotify deal, which fascinates me. But I've made a couple other ones, and when I do, you guys click on them. So I'll be honest, that's why I'm doing this story. It was interesting, not only to sort of get the opportunity to jump into the Joe Rogan topic, someone I like. I really like his show because I think he brings in different guests. He brings and has fantastic conversations. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. And to me, that's, the sign of the best type of performer, interviewer, personality, someone who's genuine, is going to stick by their values. And he does that. Now, he came forward and made these comments. Let's look at his comments, then I'll share you his comments, the comments from like Ninja and some other gamers. But getting to his comments specifically, which got clipped out of context by Dexterito, which is trying to make a name of itself. I had never heard of it, but their YouTube videos didn't have a lot of views. But this clip on Twitter raked in several million views. But here is the quote exactly. I'm going to read it to you because sometimes Joe doesn't like you when you pull his clips on YouTube. Here's what he said. Video games are a real problem. They are a real problem. Why? Because they're effing fun. And then his guest says, addictive. And then Joe goes, yeah, well, I have a problem with them. Pausing right there, it's important. Don't ignore that. He's clearly speaking from his own experience of feeling addicted to video games. So you got to keep that in when you hear the rest of this, which a lot of people I don't think were. Continuing Joe's quote. Yeah, well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them, and they are really exciting, and you don't get anywhere. You could learn jiu-jitsu, get obsessed by jiu-jitsu, then 3 years later, you're an elite jiu-jitsu athlete. You're entering in competitions, you're doing well. You might be able to make your own school. If I have 100 students and they pay me X amount of dollars a month, I could have a living. Then you see your jiu-jitsu school and all these students and has a Mercedes and a nice family. That's the future. Doing something exciting and fun, or just playing effing video games. 3 years later, you could be that same kid just playing video games, waiting for the next whatever the F game it is, next Xbox game that comes out, and you're going to waste your time. He then goes on and talks about his, as the article sort of presents here, which I can share as with you here. He does go on to sort of explain, there are kids out there that are making effing money playing video games, but you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to play multiple video games because the one game you get really good at, what are the odds it'll be around for 5 years? So basically he's trying to just say, competitive gaming, yes, it's a thing, but it's not as realistic. It's like a lottery ticket, I think is what he's sort of saying, to become a ninja. And the reality is he's right. Look, there are a lot of competitive gaming opportunities. There's a lot of things you can do through gaming. I could see you gaming in, not in moderation, obsessively addicted to gaming is going to potentially be a waste of time for a lot of people out there. But Joe Rogan's also wrong in that could be said about anything. That could be said about watching Joe Rogan's podcast for hours on end every day. The reality is any entertainment can be done to a level that's not in moderation, that can then create addiction and create problems and see someone's drive. The reality to what Joe's saying is Joe's successful because of his drive, right? He's been doing that podcast, grinding in that format for years, building that. And he became now a standout in the podcast world. Now, podcasting, I would argue, could be yelled at the same way video gaming is. A lot of us, one would argue me, others out there, who are we talking to? 100 people, 1,000 people, even 5,000 people. Is it worth it? Is this really a career? Someone could argue that. Him watching MMA, is that commentating on that, would that be a career? Playing video games. There's a million things out there. But the reality is gaming, what I do, what vloggers do, YouTube, there's so many different opportunities that can come about if you have a drive. And that's what I think the difference is of what Joe's not saying. Just because he's clearly had some issues and addicted to gaming, which is a real problem, I think, for some people, doesn't mean you can speak generally about the whole topic of gaming as a whole, because let's be honest, there is a lot of competitive gaming. In fact, one could argue competitive gaming might be actually starting to take off more, and I think was planning to blow up even more if it wasn't for the world we currently live in. But I can see gaming conventions, gaming, places where you can go competitively play. It's all going to start increasing more and more as we grow. And so jiu-jitsu is a hard one to learn. Gaming is something that's everyone's going to want to play. And if you can be good at gaming in multiple games, you can coach people, as Ninja's going to explain in his quote. You can learn how to, play. You can also get inspired by the game you play from a writing standpoint, from a development standpoint, from, coding, from an artistic graphic design perspective. There's so many ways you can take gaming and your skills as a gamer, or your escapism and entertainment of playing a game, to inspire you to become a game developer, a game maker. I mean, I watch a lot of movies. It inspired me to create Honest Trailers and Screen Junkies and all the content that I make. Was it a waste of time? No. But is it a waste of time for a lot of people? Yeah. Not everybody's going to make it. Not everyone has the drive or the ability or the talent to rise above the rest, is really what I think it's about. So for him to just say gaming is a waste of time, I think is misguided. And again, I don't knock him. I actually really like Joe Rogan. I watch the show just because I like that he creates an environment where you can say things like that and spark conversations like this. Shouldn't jump down his throat. Everyone's allowed to be entitled to their opinion, but I think this topic, spurred a lot of conversation because gamers and people out there who have made a career out of gaming were sort of annoyed, saying, "Hey, man, don't knock my sport. You want me to come out and knock podcasting?" I think that's a fair retort. So I think what Joe said is correct. There's a lot of kids out there, especially, that I think are, especially while they're locked at home, parents are trying to work. I've been guilty of it. My kids played way too much Roblox, and I'm constantly wrestling with, all right, well, read this instead. Read a book. Go write. Let's make activities. And it's hard for parents right now to sort of work, watch the kids. I can see where that is a problem. I see it in my own life, and I'm sure other parents can relate. You got to play the games in moderation. That's a reality. But that's any entertainment, right? That's any podcast. That's anything you listen to, anything you do. So, Joe, I don't think he's wrong. I just think he should have been careful in speaking that all gaming is a waste of time. That's where he misspoke, in my opinion. So where did some of these gamers come out? Let's see what Ninja said. So Ninja came forward. Ninja, one of the biggest gamers out there, responding to Joe's.
Sounds like he's talking about like the top 1%, like the very odd or one-off chance that you're going to be a professional player, an esports player, and a successful one at that, right? I mean, you can be a professional esports player and, beyond like a tier 2, tier 3 org, which is not maybe paying you the most. And obviously if you're not winning and being paid a lot, you're not a big streamer, then you're not really making a lot of money. So I'm assuming he's just basically talking about, the top 1%, you're winning every tournament, you're on a top organization, you're making a shitload of money, you're successful. And I mean, he talks about how, gaming can potentially not really get you anywhere, right? You're putting a lot of time into it and you're just mindlessly playing video games. I just don't think what Joe doesn't really understand then the full context of what the gaming community is and how many different avenues you can be successful in gaming. I mean, there's streaming, just content creation, YouTube, being a professional player, being a freaking coach. I mean, you can be incredibly understanding of a game but not have the physical capacity to be able to, get pentakills every single round and, every single game. But that doesn't mean that, there's not a job for you, right? That doesn't mean there's not a place for you in the gaming community where you can be successful, especially when, coaches are being valued more and more in the gaming community now, which is a beautiful thing to see because coaches have been in sports forever. So, I mean, I'd love to go on and talk about it more, but I think that if you guys are in the gaming scene, we all know there are so many different ways you can be successful. There's so many different ways that you can make a living out of it. So keep gaming, continue to educate yourselves, and love you guys. And also would love to be on the Joe Rogan podcast. Talk more about it.
See, now that's the most interesting thing to me at the end is Ninja, everybody else online, they just want to be on Joe's show. Who doesn't want to be on Joe's show? Joe's show is tremendously popular. Anybody who's popular, people gravitate to them. That's how it works. Ninja, Joe Rogan, whoever. If you go through on Twitter, you'll see a million celebrities, blue check marks, all joining in, saying, "Hey, Joe, let me educate you. Let's grab lunch. Hey, Joe." Because everyone wants to get on Joe because Joe's the hot commodity right now. He just sold his brand to Spotify for $100 million. So everyone's just trying to connect their brand to Joe's. Notice that. And the gaming community now can see this as an opportunity to jump in and say, well, Joe, you don't know what you're talking about. Here was another one from Dr. Lupo. He made a tweet. Do I have it? Sorry, I thought it was here. He made a tweet as well, commenting on the Joe. He made a comment. I believe this was his. Sorry, I thought I had it up here. Yeah, here it is. Listening to this podcast is a waste of time if it's all you do and wait for the next episode. Generalized bad take is bad. Anything can be harmful in excess. Video games have made many people successful. They're the cause for a majority of my friendships, etc. Echoing sort of what I said. I mean, there's also the fact that, the gamers can still employ other people. Some of these channels have staffs, starting gaming conventions. There's other ways to use gaming to your ability. There's journalism. There's sites. There's writers. There's getting into gaming as a thing. And then there's just the fact that gaming can be, an escapism, right? Entertainment. Look, alcohol. Some people can handle it. Some people can't, right? Some people can do it in moderation, enjoy it, have a glass of wine, helps them cool off, and then they move on. It's the same with gaming. It's the same with anything. I mean, there's so many vices we have as people that to generalize them all, to me, is the mistake. And Joe should know, and one could argue, someone could be obsessed with his podcast. Watch it. It's a long podcast. I try to watch as many as I can, but I can't always make time for it. But I'm sure there people are. And to devote 3 hours a day to hear what Joe Rogan thinks, one could argue that's a waste of time, right? And I don't think it is. I think once in a while, catching some of his shows, I've learned a lot from his podcast, just like I've learned from gaming. Plus, there's the hand-eye coordination. Guys, there's so much you can learn from gaming. So I think he's pointed out a issue of, yes, make sure, I think, kids, I think it's the same thing as YouTubers and bloggers, which I see a lot of kids want to do now because they see these YouTube stars. YouTube and gaming is sort of now the new career choice for a lot of kids coming up, of saying that's what I'm going to be. The reality is some of them could absolutely get into that world. There's not just the talent, but there's the behind the scenes people. There's people who help work for companies that do it. There's marketing. There's a lot of industry places you can get into that space. But just like gaming, it's hard. So I think, you gotta be careful making sure your kids or people aren't watching hours and hours of YouTube or hours and hours of gaming, because that can be dangerous. And honestly, I do think Joe's got a point in, like, playing the game is one thing, but what about the people who are watching Twitch for hours on end, who are watching Ninja hours on end? Is that helpful? Does that actually help? Granted, it's all escapism. Watching me, watching Ninja, watching Joe, it all needs to be in moderation, in my opinion. We all got to get outside once in a while, get some sunlight, to get out there, exercise, make sure our brains are active. So to focus on just video games was a mistake. I hope he does correct that. He should have Ninja on at some point. It'd be an interesting conversation. I hope he does. What do you guys think of this topic down below? What's the biggest waste of time in your opinion? Leave it down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. More is coming soon, so stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button, and thanks so much for watching here on Popcorn Planet.